it's Allison. Welcome to my YouTube channel. We are going to continue with my obsession with tunnel cards, but I did a little experimenting, so I have a little bit of a surprise, and you'll see it right here. It is a tunnel card that is also a shaker card. Now, you may have seen my video a few weeks ago where I made possibly 1 million tunnel cards, and I could have kept going. And I actually made this maybe a couple weeks ago. So here it is. Here's what we'll be making, and pretty cool. And this is all about experimenting and just having fun. And I just couldn't stop making tunnel cards. So I figured, why don't I try something different? So of course, all of the tunnel cards were inspired by the new Scapes collection by Spellbinders and Vicky Papianu. Now I know I'm pronouncing her last name wrong. I just can't even try to pronounce it correctly. I mean, I have tried, but I'm just not going to do a very good job. So suffice it to say that I am a huge Vicky fan. I've been watching her videos since before I even started making cards. So I love designing with her sets, and this collection was definitely no exception. So I'm just showing you how I'm putting together some of these cute little marine critters, and I absolutely love this turtle. There's just something about this turtle. All right, it's time to make the tunnel card, and I'm using the same measurements that I ended up with in my last video. And here's my little scoring tool that I'm using. I actually pre-scored this paper before off camera. I'm showing the score lines and the size of the paper. The paper is 10.5 inches long by 6 inches tall. And I showed you the score lines. Now on this side, I'm just scoring at 1/2 inch, not 3/4 of an inch. So this is how I ended up doing things differently at the end of my last video. And I will have a link at the end of this to that big long tunnel card video. Now these are the inserts that go inside the tunnel card, and I'm just scoring these 1/4 inch on each side. And I had the measurement of this. I think it's 4 3/4 by 6 inches tall. And now I have one last piece. This is 4 1/4 inches wide by 6 inches tall. This is like the back panel, and I'm just trimming it just a tiny bit, just to make sure it fits within those scored lines. But that's just going to go in the back of the card. Now I can take my bone folder and reinforce those scored lines on all of the pieces of cardstock. So there's the box itself, and here are the 2 inserts. I'm calling them inserts. I don't know what they're technically called. So again, just reinforcing those lines. This is the arch labels and tag die set, and I use this on the other tunnel card video as well. I'm grabbing the biggest size from that set that will fit on my card front. Now remember, the measurements result in one side that is longer than the other. One of those flaps is 3/4 of an inch and one is 1/2 inch. I want the front of my card to be on the side with that longer flap. That way I know that the unfinished edge where the flap closes will be on the back. So here I'm taking the die and just lining it up using my T-square ruler to make sure it's straight. And there's my opening. All right, so here are the underwater tunnel dies, which I'm still completely in love with. And I have my 2 inserts. Now I'm going to be using the medium and the small size for this card. And I'm just kind of trying to get an idea of what that will look like with this arch opening. And the nice thing is I don't have to, have this perfectly centered. I'm just kind of playing around with it right now to figure out where I want it, and then I can run that through my die cutting machine. And I'm going to save that that piece that I cut out. I have a bunch of those set aside, and believe me, I will use them because I love these shapes. So now I'm just taking the smaller die to put on that insert that's going to go in the back. And I had used the turtle just to make sure it would fit in that opening. And now I'm just seeing if I like what it looks like with the opening, with the arch opening. And I'll mark the tops of those just so I know when I put it all together that I'm putting it together the way that I had originally planned. So now I'm going to take some 1/8 inch Scor-Tape and I'm going to put it along these scored edges on my inserts. And I'm basically putting it on the front of these inserts. All right, so now I had flipped everything over because it's just easier for me that way. And I'm lining this up. First, I'm going to make sure it's lined up with the top and bottom of the base. And then I'm going to make sure that it's as far over as I can get it, but still be able to close everything up. So as soon as I have that in that perfect spot, I'll just pull the release tape off and secure it back down. That's just the easiest way that I have found to attach these things. And so I'm going to come in now with the second insert. And again, I'm going to push this right up against the edge of that first one and make sure it's lined up along the top and bottom. And again, as soon as I know it's in the right place, I'll just pull that release tape off and secure it down. Now these, you can see that I got a pretty even little margin there for that, the distance between the front flap and that first insert. All right, so I bet you thought I was going to forget to put that back piece in again, right? But I remembered. If you saw my first video, I forgot to do it the first time. This really should be the first thing I do before I do anything, because almost every time I almost forget to put it in. All right, but now that it's in, I can pull those two pieces of release tape off and close this flap. Now this flap of the box covers those two inserts perfectly, because remember that flap was a 1/2 inch and both of those little flaps on the inserts are a 1/4 inch. All right, so now everything's looking good. I haven't closed up the box yet, but now I can glue in all of my little marine friends and coral and all that stuff. And oh, that poor little light blue fish. I had meant to put a little colored fin on him and I forgot, so he's looking kind of sad. I was so preoccupied with my shaker idea. See his little fin? Oh, poor little guy. So anyway, attaching all of this in here is pretty easy. All right, so I have the Typewriter Adventure Sentiments stamp set. You saw me use this in my first video. I'm going to use it again on this card. I took it out of its packaging that it came in, and now I'm putting it into one of my little pouches that I'll put in my stash. Now, here's the packaging from that stamp set. It's just like any other packaging. This is what I'm going to use to create my shaker. So I am just going to cut along the seams on both sides, and I'll end up getting 2 pieces out of this packaging. So I'm going to use the front and the back, and I'm just cutting it apart. And when I cut it, I need one piece. I need to make sure the piece is wide enough to cover that opening. And then I need one piece that's a little bit wider or bigger than that all the way around. So again, I have one piece that is smaller than the other, and I'm setting aside the larger piece. And so here's the smaller piece, and I'm going to take some 1/8 inch Scor-Tape, and I'm gonna go all around the edges. So basically what I'm doing is the same thing as if I were making a flat shaker. And if you haven't seen anybody make a flat shaker before, I can link to a video below. But that's essentially what I'm doing. Now, here's the first thing that I would do differently the next time I make one of these. I would make this smaller piece out of a piece of acetate. And the reason is it was just kind of awkward putting these two flimsy little pieces together. But here I have now put this small piece on top of the larger piece of packaging, and I am folding the larger piece over onto the tape. So again, it's just like making a normal flat shaker. And at the bottom, I'm just kind of snipping the corners. And I like to put an extra little piece of tape on these little corners because the piece of plastic that's folded over on the side has kind of covered the tape in that area. So I like to just add a little bit of extra tape in those little corners. So again, I think if one of these pieces, if the smaller piece was acetate, it would give it just a little more structure. But you know, this was all about experimenting, and you learn things for the next time. So here I'm just going to make sure that it's wide enough to cover the opening, and we can move on. This is Distress Rock Candy Glitter. This is what I love using when I'm doing shakers where I want it to look like snow or, I don't know, water. So I actually pulled in a darker piece of paper to put under this to see if anything was leaking out. And sure enough, you can see that this one corner, some of it was leaking out. And not surprising, again, having these two flimsy little pieces of packaging taped together, there was bound to be an escape route for that fine glitter. So I'm just closing it up with some more Scor-Tape. And now that I have all my glitter in there, I can seal up the fourth side. And again, just pulling that release tape off and folding that larger piece over. And again, just to be sure, I will add more Scor-Tape to these corners, just so we don't have any more glitter escaping. And just testing it one last time over that yellow piece of paper. All right, so now we can go ahead and get this little shaker inside the tunnel card. Now, I had two little pieces on the one on the top and one on the bottom of Scor-Tape that still had release paper on it. So I'm just gonna pull that release paper off and temporarily secure the shaker in place. And really the only thing I could think of doing was to take this Scor-Tape and cover all four edges of the shaker to secure it to the card base. This is probably the best tape that I had. I wasn't going to use Scotch tape because I didn't think it would hold. So I'm just coming around all these edges. Now here is this second thing that I would do differently. I would have pulled the release tape off of these pieces and just covered the adhesive with some paper. But I didn't. I left the tape as is with this release paper on it. And you'll see that I'm going to go ahead and close up. Now you can see from the top that it looks like a regular tunnel card. You can't even see the shaker pouch, right? So that's pretty cool. So like I was saying, I was ready to close up the tunnel card. I have some more Scor-Tape. This is actually a little bit not quite as wide as a 1/2 inch, so it's perfect width to put that 1/2 inch strip there. And so now I just bring the other side over and attach it. And really, these tunnel cards, after you've done a 500,000 like I have, they're really easy. But look how fun that is. I was really pleased, I have to say, when I figured this out. All right, so here's the sentiment from that stamp set, and I wanted a long sentiment so that this piece would look like the base of a snow globe. And if I didn't mention it already, I was kind of inspired by those snow globes that you would buy at an aquarium. So I think it kind of looks like that. All right, so here's that release tape that is bothering me. I really didn't want to risk it coming off, and frankly, I just didn't like the look of it. You know, if somebody's fingers caught on it, and if the release paper came off, remember this tunnel card folds flat, so if that release paper came off, it would tape everything together and it just wouldn't work. So I'm snipping off the top of the release paper on the strips that go up at the sides, and then I pulled off the release paper at the top, and now I'm just coming in with a small strip of paper. This is just copy paper, and I'll place that on top of that adhesive, and I'm just gonna do that on the other side. Now there's still release paper on the strips that go vertically, but you can't see it. So here's what it looks like now, and it's much cleaner looking. You can't even tell that anything is in there. So let's see what we have. Now this is a 5x7 envelope. The card fits in there nice and flat, and here it stands and it shakes. I think it's fun, but it was, you know, the packaging is kind of cloudy looking. I think that's also another reason why acetate might be better for next time, but I just wanted to experiment, and I'm happy with how it turned out. I think it's fun. I hope you enjoyed it, and I really appreciate having you here. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.